Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast. Today, it is just going to be me and Chase. Isaac is not going to be here today. I missed last week, so good to see everyone. I got a lot of kind of people reaching out and saying, like, oh, good luck on your exams and stuff. So thanks for that. But we got to witness a Pirate series that probably the ugliest series win so far this season, I would say. The bats were not there, especially in the second game, and it was just not the prettiest series. I think you got a lot of Padres fans a little bit frustrated because apparently we can't hit the Pirates pitching for whatever reason. But Chase, I'll let you start, man. What was just your overall thoughts on this series?
Played really solid defense. Kim made some great plays. It was just really solid defense. Tatis cleaned up his game. There wasn't any errors. He still tried to make a play, that probably should have held on to the ball, but it was still a good throw, even though the runner was safe. We saw the same thing, the aggressive base running, kind of aggressive approach at the plate. Didn't pan out this series, for some reason, like Matt was saying, we can't hit Pirates pitching. And for some reason, we struggle at home. I saw statistics saying that our average at home is 218, but our average away is 251. So we have a couple road game series coming up. So maybe the bats come alive then, and hopefully they can bring that home. But yeah, it was a pretty solid series overall. The pitching was great.
Yeah, you brought up the pitching. The pitching was excellent. Total of 4 allowed runs over 3 games. So I mean, and that's kind of been the reason why the Padres have been able to at least win a lot of games early on because the bats have not been there. Right now, the Padres are 26th in OPS. I believe they still have the best ERA in the league. Currently sitting at 18 and 14. And I wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of Padres fans are a little bit frustrated, just like, hey, they're not going out there and dominating. They're pretty close to having the best record in the league. They have a 563 winning percentage right now. I mean, and you start looking at like the other divisions, they would be in first or second of almost every single division. Like they're still playing good baseball, and they're doing it without Manny Machado or Fernando Tatis even hitting 230 right now. And that's something that we should absolutely expect to turn around. So I think we don't need to get super frustrated with that. Now, I will say the thing that I've been like most worried about early on in this season has not been the hitting. I know it's going to come around. I mean, I think we saw that last year too. And early on last year, they didn't come out just swinging. And, Slam Diego took a while to get going when that kind of got brought in. But I think like a lot of what we've realized is like it takes them a while to get going. But once they get hot, they get super hot. And it hasn't been like that yet. We saw the Fernando Tatis like just immaculate series against the Dodgers. But for the most part, he hasn't really been himself. Manny Machado hasn't been himself. Will Myers hasn't been super great lately. He did have an RBI last night. But, I mean, most of these guys are hitting either like 250s, and then you have Machado and Tatis hitting 230. The two guys that have really been carrying the offense up to this point are Trent Grisham and Eric Hosmer. So, I mean, good for them for being able to do that. But, I mean, for the most part, we haven't seen the Padres look that great from a hitting standpoint. But got to bring up the pitching, got to bring up Yu Darvish. I don't know how many Padre fans have been kind of looking into what the Cubs are doing, but when we look at the Cubs, you see Zach Davies is boasting a 8.22 ERA, I believe, right now, and Darvish has been fantastic. I mean, yesterday he didn't get the win, but he definitely pitched where the Padres had a chance to win that game. So he looked great. The bullpen has looked great every single day, and I think the most important, the biggest takeaway from this series for me is that we got to see Dinelson Lamet and Ryan Weathers come out there even though it was only for a couple innings for each of them. But what does that mean to you, Chase, having those guys back in the rotation potentially?
It means everything. I mean, we kind of been without the last two starters for a couple weeks now, and you're just like, okay, Lamet's going to be back. He's going to be a solid four. He's like the fourth ace on the team, if you want to say it like that. If depending on how Musgrove continues to pitch, he's kind of gotten rocked his last 2 outings and struggled, but he'll bounce back. Lamet's always going to be there. We know what he's capable of. He dominated last season completely. Could have won a Cy Young last season, and if he continues to do him, he'll be great. And then Weathers, he's just been one of those guys that's come in and dominated the league. He's pitched to a high level against everybody. He's our Dodger killer since we got rid of Lauer. And, if he continues to do that, I'd like to see him make less pitches in an inning, because he usually averages 15 to 20 pitches an inning. If he settles down, and lets his defense play behind him and try not to strike out everybody and make a little bit more quality pitches. We can get our five starter going, 6 innings with maybe one earned run in. What else could you ask for out of a five starter?
Yeah, no, the 1 through 5 is really starting to come along, and I mean, it looks like Paddock might be on the outside looking in at this point if those two guys are healthy, because that is a really, really good 1 through 5. I definitely believe that Ryan Weathers has earned the nod over Chris Paddock. And the big question with, of course, him and Lamet is just the health issues. But both of them come in on Tuesday. They each pitch. The velocity is kind of down for Lamet in his second inning. Turns out it's just kind of being rusty, not injury related, which is good to hear. At least I hope it's not injury related. I hope we're getting disclosed everything on that front. But definitely like just how they came out and pitched well. I mean, we got to see them. I mean, I missed watching Dinelson Lamet's slider, so that's always nice to see that in play. And Ryan Weathers has really been the breakout player on the Padres this year, I believe, up to that point when he went down. And so, I mean, we were all terrified, like, no, you can't be telling me that Weathers is out now. So having those two guys back just makes this one of the top rotations in the game, especially when you kind of look over at the Dodgers and you see like a lot of their starters are battling injuries. Unfortunately, Dustin May's out for the year. Never want to see a guy go out like that. But I mean, you kind of start looking around. You go, this might be the top rotation in the league. So it's a big deal. I think that's huge. And I'm gonna try to take this from a positive note because on one side the bats have not been good, and we've talked about the lineups in the past. I will say that the lineup yesterday was really frustrating to me. I recognize that Tommy Pham has been hitting better, but you still look at him over the course of the season, he has not been doing very good. And then Tingler decides to hit him lead off. He goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. I don't think me, you, or Isaac would have been a fan of having Pham hit lead off. And so some of the moves in the lineup have definitely, in my opinion, have definitely affected the play of a lot of these hitters. And we talked about how you put Profar at 6. Like, no, put Profar at 2. That's where he's best at, or put him at the very end of the lineup. But I think when the lineup continues, it starts to get a little bit more consistency. That's going to help a lot. And I also just think, like, as the season goes on, we're going to see Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado get hot, and that's going to make all the difference in how this whole team's lineup, how the whole lineup kind of shapes out. It's going to help everyone in the lineup just get a lot more fastballs. We talked about that last year with Will Myers, that he was able to be so great last season because he has guys getting on in front of him, and they have to throw fastballs. There's a guy on second with one out. You can't start walking him and then having like the guys in the lineup to start cleaning up. So I think that's going to help a lot. But I think my biggest takeaway early on this year is the Padres are able to win when they score 3 runs. When they score 2 runs, they don't have to go out there and put 6 or 7 up every game, which they did last year, and they did in the playoffs, especially last year when they didn't have any arms. They're going to have 5 guys that come out there that can throw 6 shutout innings any given night. Now they're not going to do that every single night, but if they just had these 5 guys in the rotation healthy, I think even if your offense isn't doing great, because right now it's 26th in the league and they're 18-14. Imagine when the offense turns around. That's going to be when it really starts to break out, and that's when I just think that they're going to really start that where they could win first place in this division. I really think that's the case. The Dodgers have struggled a lot lately. The Giants have been hot, of course, but overall, I think this Pirate series just shows like, hey, even if the lineup's not looking great, they can still go out there and scrape out wins, and that's a huge plus for this team.
As long as our arms stay healthy, I don't think there's a rotation, maybe even bullpen that can outmatch us. Just we have the depth. Even when our guys got injured, we still had the depth. Miggy Diaz came out and threw 3 solid innings. He could take another spot if somebody goes down. Gore is always there. We have a couple other guys in the minor leagues that, when they are chosen to make a spot start, they perform. Last year or 2 years ago, we had Pedro Avila come out for like a Diamondbacks game, threw 5 innings and 1 earned run. We have the depth for pitching that even if one guy goes down, there's one guy that's hungry for an opportunity and will, perform. So even when our bats don't live up to the level that we're used to, we will still win games. We're not the old Padres where, oh my God, we need at least 3 or more runs to win a game because our pitching staff can't hold down, a 3-inning game. We can win a 1-0 game, maybe 3 or 4 days out of the week, and not a lot of other teams can say that.
Yeah, and just to kind of go back on that, to kind of see how dominant the Padres pitching has been early on. lead the league in ERA with a team ERA of 2.76, lead the league with 350 strikeouts, 13 saves. They're allowing opponents to a 203 batting average. They have the most innings pitched. And I think the biggest concern about the pitching is definitely the health. But we've even seen a lot of these guys not active. I mean, we've seen what Lamet pitch 3 or 4 innings. Was it? I think it was three. I think he only pitched one in his first outing. So we've barely seen Lamet. Paddock hasn't looked that great, and he might not even be in the rotation. We haven't seen Mackenzie Gore yet. Ryan Weathers has obviously looked phenomenal, but even in the bullpen, we saw Kella out for a while. We've seen some guys miss some time. But overall, I mean, this pitching rotation has been dominant. So I think they deserve a lot of praise early on. And going back to the bats a little bit, it's gonna be all right. They're gonna turn it around. I will say I really hope Jace Tingler kind of starts changing up how these lineups are coming out, because most of the time the lineup card comes out and it's just like, what are we doing? And over the last couple weeks it has got better. And last night they did rest Trent Grisham and Manny Machado. Now they both came in and pinch hit, both got hits, but for the most part it has been more consistent. So as long as that continues, I think that'll help a lot. But anything else you wanted to add, like, for your takeaways of this Pirate series?
Oh, I think we played good baseball. The bats were a little slow, but you know what? They'll pick up on the road. The Padres, for some reason, have been playing to the level of their competition. And so, hopefully Nando and Machado come alive these next couple games and tear the cover off the baseball.